Welcome to Risky Routes, a short interview series telling the stories of moments when travel forces you to grow up and adapt fast. Because risk creates perspective and perspective creates success. We talk about the chaotic, uncomfortable, borderline bad idea journeys that push people to level up, trust themselves, and take control of their lives. I'm your host, Olivia Goldstein. Today, I am joined by my friend, Jennifer Sertl. Jennifer is a writer, strategist, and community leader focused on leadership, technology, and organizational coherence. She serves as the vice president of marketing and partnerships at Circle Optics, where she builds community across the deep tech innovation ecosystem. She founded Agility 3R, a consultancy that helps organizations align culture, strategy, and execution through behavioral branding. Jennifer is also the author of Strategy, Leadership, and the Soul, and co author of the Upstate Founders Playbook, which was released in 2019 with Nasser. Love that. She brings the mind of a chess player and the heart of a poet to every engagement. And that is very, very accurate and true. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's exciting, Olivia, and just being a part of UVC, being a part of the region, and also just seeing how you've been building the community and taking the community national has just been amazing. So I've really enjoyed seeing you grow and growing with you.
Thank you. Yes, definitely growing together. So this has been a fun passion project for me that I feel like in a lot of ways you've been on the front lines for, because I don't know if you realize this, but that's actually stemmed all through a referral you made to me to a group called A2V back in
To the
September.
Valley.
Yes. So you brought me into this group. I had a fantastic time, met so many wonderful women. And one of the things that I found is a lot of these women have had really cool experiences, just like in travel and just life that's ultimately shaped who they are. So I had to just give you at least a shout out for that, because in a lot of ways, I feel like that's where this all got started. So thank you. And you have your own story that you reached out to me to share. So would love it if you could tell me a little bit more about your experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think one of the beautiful things about LA to the Valley is the idea of the Valley has so much capital. Yep. And one of the things that Deborah, the founder, really cares about is the ask and learning how to ask. A lot of times we know what we need, but we don't know how to package it in a concrete way that people can adjust to it. Yes. And we had this wonderful dinner, with Ellie and Roshi, and I think it was great. And when I think about risky routes, I think anyone that's an innovator or entrepreneur or an individual, it's a risky route. Yep. And the level of courage and identity seeking, it's almost like it's a Zen. It's forced upon you to be really reflective of who you are and what are the trade-offs. When you were talking about your theme, I just wanted to share the most, if I think about juxtapositions, the most, before I was divorced, I used to do a lot of international work. And I had to stop doing it simply because my children were younger and they really needed stability. And so, and I know, and this isn't about being a woman, this is about being an entrepreneur who also cares about family. That it's really leading a double life. And the most, I think, dramatic juxtaposition for me was I had a wonderful opportunity to speak at Sibos, which is a financial, anytime you do an international transaction, you get a SWIFT code. And SWIFT, the organization, has a conference in different parts of the world talking about the future of payments, the future of currency. And what's exciting is that the think tank I've been a part of has taken it from the future of money to the future of value, the idea that currency can change. But I was invited to speak in front of 2,000 people, but it was in Osaka, Japan. And my family was very into the Green Bay Packers, and the way in which I had, like many of you that travel with family know that you have to make trade-offs, and you have to create some transitions, and you have to kind of forego any idea of jet lag. And so in almost earning permission to run your business by the level in which you show up in your family. And so in Japan, as many of you have traveled, just know in different places, there's just a different sense of space a different sense of proprietary, and it was quite a conservative environment. The flight was 18 hours, and then I landed in Green Bay into an arena of Lambeau Field. And so I went from like very tiny space, everything's packaged beautifully, to kind of butts and beer, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I had to, and I will say the word perform as a wife and perform as a mother, because I felt almost guilty that I had this wonderful experience, because, those of us that are entrepreneurs, sometimes it's almost like having a lover. Our identity is so tied. And probably at that time, again, this happened over 10 years ago, my identity was so tied to my thought leadership that sometimes I would get more oxytocin from my work than my family. And I'm going to be a little bit nervous about them hearing this, that having to make that trade-off, and then having to show up in a way that they know that they're loved and valued and that you miss them, but also wanting to be super competent on the edge of something, And so when I think about Risky Routes, that experience was within 18 hours, I had to, be kind of a thought leader in one space and then come back and just be a regular mom in another. And, it was hard on my body. I didn't really know how hard it was on my body until, I had to do some reflection and do all that. And I wanted to be on your show just to say I empathize with all of you that are navigating being a parent and being an innovator, and the ways in which you have to compartmentalize and reverse engineer your time and your energy.
Right.
And that they matter. They both matter. Unfortunately, my marriage did not survive the innovator's journey. And that's for many, many reasons. But one of them was my work mattered so much. It was hard for me to be satisfied as a wife. And I would say I was a better mother than a better wife, And so I hope this isn't too, I know this is upbeat, but are there less?
Oh, I'm very authentic. So I love this. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess so what I learned is just how important it is that you don't feel guilty about what gives you joy and what fuels your family, and find ways to share more and ask for more as a partner, so that it can be more of a partnership journey rather than hyper performing. And again, this isn't about being a woman. This is about every single, as you know, I work at Circle Optics, and Ian Gagger is the chief operating officer, and he's an incredible father.
Yes.
He's an incredible business leader. And we all struggle with how to do it in a way that we can show up everywhere the way that we want to. It's rigorous, it's hard, and I just want all the partners out there that are married to someone like me to know how much we love you and how important you are. But we have to have a trifecta. We have to have our work as our love. We have to have you as a spouse as our love, and our children as a love.
Yes.
And it's equilateral. It is not, that's my invitation, is please allow us that space. And we will share more and have you be more of the journey if we're afraid you won't have us choose.
Yes. You said it was a little bit negative, but honestly, I don't know if it is, because it's not just upbeat. It's having these real conversations, right? And I so appreciate you sharing that experience, because it is so often a trade-off. I mean, listen, I get it. I don't have kids myself, but I'm also divorced. And I understand, I'm like you, like someone that's a workaholic, married to my work. And it's important to me. And ultimately, I mean, it failed for a lot of reasons, but that's the same challenge that I had too, right? It was a big piece of it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this. And then if you layer on top of that, having kids, it's like, that's just another added responsibility and kind of like focus that you have in your life that takes a lot of time, energy, effort, and something you deeply care about. It's funny, as you were sharing this story, I didn't tell you this beforehand, but I was kicking around the idea just from conversations I've had with so many other successful women about how they manage life at home and life at work, because it's something we don't always talk about when you're like a high performing, successful woman. I mean, your kids are older now, right? But it's like when they're young too, it's a trade-off. And it's almost like, I hear the word a lot, or the phrase, the second shift, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like
Yeah.
you almost have like you're always on working. And when you're caring for small kids, you have to take care of them a lot too. And it's hard because the experience that you shared, so rawfully too, of like I had this like amazing experience where it's feeding into my career, the things I care about. And then honestly, probably a little bit of a dopamine hit too, where it's like I'm the thought leader coming to speak to 2,000 people. And then it's just like to be thrown into like the totally polar opposite environment, where you're just like surrounded by, just totally different situation, but you're doing it for your family too. So it's like in a
Yeah.
lot of ways also like not work, but it is like a second shift, right? Because you're making that sacrifice for them because that's something that's important to them. So it is a
Yeah.
beautiful theme, but would love to get your thoughts. I mean, you're like I said, your kids are older now. This happened 10 years ago, but it's like, how do you think about, you know, that experience you had in raising kids?
Well, I think what's so beautiful about the power of dialogue is that something hit me. So I think over the last decade, I think things have changed. I know Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman often talk about you have to be a workaholic to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I like, I don't think that's true. I think you have to be intentional to be successful. And so one of the ways that I managed, and people today, even though I don't have younger children, I have many projects
Yes.
and I have a client in Australia, I have a client in India, and often that's different times. Well, how do you do it? I built a habit very early on of creating an 18-month calendar.
Okay.
And then when I had children, I would of course put all the events that I could go to and all the important games and the important
Yes.
concerts. And then I would put like the trade shows and all of that. So I would have an 18-month calendar where what was known was already mapped out.
Yep.
So what I would really have is a good sense of what available capacity do I have.
Yeah.
And then I would always take 20% of that and reserve that so that I always had 20% to play with. Because
Yep.
you know what I mean? And so being impeccable with my time and treating my intelligence like a watt, like a light bulb. I only have 50 watts a week to deploy. And I like to think about where I'm going to deploy it before I spend that. So that's been an incredible tool for me. The second is that as I was listening to you and realizing it, when you had mentioned the dopamine hit, my work at that time was too much my identity. 100%. It was unhealthy. I made a promise to myself as an 8-year-old child that I would be significant. I didn't know what that word meant, but when I was invited to the global stage, I felt, oh, that's what I promised myself as a child, and I'm doing now, right? And now that I have children and see their struggles, I realize that, especially in America, we have this thing about being exceptional. And more that I value my privacy and things, I realize that there's an exceptionalism myth. We might not want to be left out, so we want to do something significant, so we matter. But
Yes.
so many people that like matter, and we all matter, and we don't matter more or less. And so I kind of also want to just put a thing in that I think there's an exceptionalism problem in our culture.
Yes.
And I want more people to not feel that they need to be significant. They need to do what they do well and take care of their ecosystem, their family, their community.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing that just fundamentally keeps the lights on.
Yep. And it's also like defining like what significant to who, right?
Yeah,
So it's
right.
like you think about this experience you had in Japan, right? And it's like you were on stage talking to thousands of people, and maybe in that moment you had the spotlight, you were significant to them, but come 10 years later, like how many of those people in those audience are you still significant? And I'm not saying that, you know what I mean, that you're not
I totally get
significant,
it. Totally
right?
get
It's like I don't remember, speakers that I saw 10 years ago on stage, right?
Right.
So it's like, but like you think about daily, like the significance you have in your home community. I mean, you do so much for your family. I know you're an awesome mom. I hear about your kids. I know what your kids are doing quite often, which is a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
I love that element. But you also show up and are there for your home community. So it's like significant in what capacity, right? It doesn't always mean fame. It doesn't always mean like a huge audience. Sometimes it just means touching the people that are close to you in your community, which I think in a lot of ways you've done.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is that during COVID, I had a friend who asked me how I was doing. And my answer to him was, I planted a rose named Sarah and sent him a picture of my flower. And that really was, I got close to the earth.
Yes.
Cultivating this rose felt even more pleasurable than being a speaker in Japan.
Yep.
But, and I just thought that would be the biggest example of how I shifted in terms of what's important during that moment in COVID,
Right. And it's like, it's almost like a metaphor for like being more grounded in the things that matter, right? As you were saying that, right? It's not the fame, it's not the size, it's not the huge platform you had. It's like, it's that being more grounded, being more present with like the, community in front of you or who you're surrounded by on a daily basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the risky route is that you are enough and that no stage can take the place of like where you're grounded and what gives you a sense of beauty in your own space. I think that would be like, that's probably what in this conversation, this is beautiful about dialogue. I didn't know I'd say that. I didn't know I'd introduce you to Sarah.
I know, right? I love it. No, that's why I like to like not know where things are going to go and just make it more casual. It's an incredible experience, right? Because as you said, it's the juxtaposition between two insanely different like environments that you had, coupled with the fact that it's like two literally different jobs that you were bringing, and it's like the Jennifer on stage is not probably the same Jennifer that's sitting at the ballpark with her kids, right? It's like you have to show up in a different way. Yes. And it probably, if I had to guess, a theme and experience that a lot of parents have, right? And it's like, how do you both balance this environment of when you're oftentimes, especially as founders, where that is more than a full-time job, but also like being present in a way with your kids and doing the things that they care about too.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it so very well.
Yes. Well, this has been so much fun. I appreciate you sharing your story and the rawness and the authenticity of it. And we're so grateful to have, speaking on behalf of like Rochester, upstate New York, I've had the pleasure of working closely with you for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, it's been amazing,
right? I think you were one of the first people I met when I joined Nasser at UVC, and he's like, read this book that me and Jennifer wrote." So it's wonderful to watch you blossom and just to see what you're doing too with Circle Optics and all of these other startups in the community too. So thank you for really having an impact here and showing up and being you.
Thank you. And thank you for your leadership. I say it all the time. I'd vote for you for president because your governance is so inclusive and so focused and spot on. You know what I mean? Like you're a laser light. And when you did that event in Buffalo with, with Upstate Capital, I'm just like, this is what leadership looks like.
I'm nuts. Yeah, I don't know. I'm too divisive and I have too strong of opinions. I can't play a political game. But yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, we need you championing for the region, and I look forward to seeing you actually in Detroit. I'll see you in Detroit next.
Let's go. Yes.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you. All right,
so much,
Jennifer.
Cheers. That was fun.